Every election year, Democrats seem to remember patriotism for about an hour at their convention when they're trying to win back swing voters. The whole message of Kamala's speech in 2024 was take back the flag. That's why she talked about America like a pageant contestant. Less than 1 in 4 Democrats under 30 say they're proud to be an American. 54% say they're embarrassed by it. Embarrassed? Like America's your mom picking you up at school?
Bill Maher just pulled off something on America's 250th anniversary that plenty of Democrats probably did not see coming. He did not tiptoe around it, and he did not try to soften the edges. Instead, he came in strong on national TV and took aim at them point by point, leaving very little room for anyone to miss the message. Now, with that said, this is where the real story starts.
And finally, new rule, the smartest thing Democrats did this year was finding their patriotism again. If you told me a year ago that if Kamala Harris would be the nominee and in her acceptance speech, she would use the word privilege, I would not have guessed that she used it the way she did.
The greatest privilege on earth. The privilege and pride of being an American.
Yeah, and Tim Walz also began his speech with a great line saying, we're all here tonight for one beautiful, simple reason. We love this country.
Notice what Maher just did. He did not praise the policy, and he did not go out of his way to boost the platform. Instead, he gave his own party credit for one thing, what he framed as finally acting like the country mattered again. And that is where the tension comes in. In Maher's view, Democrats only seem to rediscover America when election season rolls around, while the rest of the year, critics say, the party can come off as treating the flag like an awkward family member. Some viewers read the convention as the rehearsal and the applause as the audition, while the broader audience at home was expected to move past the last 10 years of sharp criticism. Critics argue that moment may already have come too late, and Maher appears to lean in that direction. Then he says out loud the part that many Democratic strategists, at least privately, are said to already understand.
Every election year, Democrats seem to remember patriotism for about an hour at their convention when they're trying to win back swing voters. The whole message of Kamala's speech in 2024 was take back the flag. That's why she talked about America like a pageant contestant.
The greatest privilege on earth. The privilege and pride of being an American.
Hard to believe she lost, huh? Well, you can't take back the flag in an hour if the rest of the time you treat patriotism as something vaguely embarrassing.
There it is, the kind of diagnosis nobody inside the party really wants to hear. According to Maher, you cannot spend 1,000 days sending mixed signals about America, then pin on a flag for one night and expect people to suddenly buy it. Voters notice that stuff. They notice the eye rolls every other month. They notice the critiques about how the country was built on something shameful, and they notice the silence on Flag Day, then all the volume around protests. In Maher's view, that is exactly why Kamala lost, not because of the policy debate, and not because of the running mate. By that point, the brand was already damaged before she even stepped on stage. And that is why the reaction online is landing so hard. People are not just hearing a punchline, they are hearing a bigger argument about how the party talks to voters and whether that message still connects outside the usual crowd. Some commentators said Maher was putting into words what many frustrated Democrats have been whispering for a while, even if few wanted to say it so bluntly on camera. What makes it sting is the timing. When a public figure points out that the country feels like a campaign prop one moment and a problem the next, it taps into a tension that has been building for years. That is the part social media keeps circling back to. Not just the joke itself, but the idea that people can tell when a message feels rehearsed. So the clip is doing more than getting attention. It is reopening an old debate about authenticity, loyalty, and whether this kind of messaging can still work when voters are already skeptical.
I wore it every day, and nobody thought it meant that I loved Nixon. Because 50 years ago, liberals didn't concede patriotism. Abbie Hoffman was the quintessential 60s radical, and when he had to appear before the House Un-American Activities Committee, he wore an American flag shirt. which some cops later ripped off his back. Because the message that most threatens authoritarians isn't America sucks, it's America is ours too.
This is the kind of history lesson some on the new left may need to hear. Years ago, some of the more radical voices in America still wrapped themselves in the flag instead of running from it. They claimed it, arguing that the country belonged to them too, not just to the people already in power. In Maher's view, that was the smartest move the left ever made. You do not beat the other side by handing over your own country. You take that ground back. But critics say the modern left did the opposite. They gave away patriotism, the flag, the anthem, and the whole idea of national pride, then acted surprised when working Americans reportedly stopped trusting them as much.
You run for office in America, you have to want to live here. I bring this up because there was a video that made the rounds recently by a woman who said she was a proud progressive and was running for state representative in New Hampshire, and yet posted this.
Is there a place we can move that people would be happy to have us, that we're not gentrifying or colonizing? I don't want to be a problem, but I need to get this country.
This country. The one you want to be elected to a leadership position in? What was your campaign slogan? America, a shining shithole on a hill?
This is what Maher seems to mean when he says the party has lost the plot. In his framing, it is a real person on a real ballot, running for real office, while openly saying she wants out of the country she is trying to lead. To Maher, this does not look like one isolated moment. It looks like the kind of personality he says the modern left keeps producing. People who seem frustrated with the place, people who act like they are stuck in it, people who treat public office like a burden instead of a responsibility. The audience laughed because, in that room, plenty of Democrats probably recognize the type. They have seen versions of her in their own circles, and in Maher's view, that disconnect is exactly why the party struggles to connect beyond its own bubble. And then Maher lands the line many viewers were waiting to hear.
I'm confused by this political message. Vote for me because I hate it here. Now, does America have big problems? Yes, I've often cited the America sucks list. Things like being 54th in the world in infant mortality behind Cuba, 19th in literacy behind Russia, 72nd in female representation in government behind Iraq. A lot of work to do here. And is it possible for a country to lose itself so much that leaving it is justified? Yes, but we're not there yet, not by a long shot, and we don't need quitters. We need people who will stay and fix it.
And there is the punchline. The country is not beyond saving, and the people sounding like it is are not the heroes in this story. Maher's point, as he framed it, is that they are checking out. In his view, a mindset shift like that could change the Democratic Party fast. Stop running away from every problem. Stop talking like leaving is some kind of strategy. Stop treating escape as a political plan. To him, the real patriots of the next generation are not the ones writing long posts about how impossible America is. They are the ones willing to get involved and make it better, and the polling seems to back up that broader argument. According to Gallup in 2025, only 36% of Democrats said they were extremely or very proud to be American, down from 62% the year before, a 26-point drop in just 12 months. Among Republicans, that number was 92%. That puts the patriotism gap at its widest level Gallup has ever recorded.
Maybe the problem isn't that America isn't worth defending. Maybe the problem is that lots of people today are entitled whiners who have no perspective and no idea how good they have it. 59% of self-identified liberals say there have been times when they considered leaving America for good, like after NBC canceled The West Wing. I don't get it. You want so badly for every immigrant to come to this country and experience the good life, but somehow it's so terrible you want to leave?
That number alone should shut the discussion down. In other words, a majority of self-described liberals in America have, at some point, said they have thought about packing up and leaving the country they say they are fighting for. In Maher's view, that is not a minor contradiction, it is the contradiction. You cannot keep asking the world to look at America like a place worth believing in, while also talking like you want out yourself. To him, that is not really a political movement at all. It looks more like a midlife crisis with a microphone, and voters can pick up on it. They can hear the disconnect, and they can feel it in almost every conversation. That is why the reaction around Maher's remarks has been so loud online. For some viewers, it was not just another political jab. It was a blunt reminder of how far apart the two sides now feel on basic identity, pride, and what it even means to be part of the country. Supporters saw his point as a wake-up call, while critics pushed back and said he was oversimplifying a much bigger problem. And that split is exactly what keeps this conversation alive. It is not only about one comment or one panel moment, it is about a much deeper argument playing out in public, where every side thinks the other one has lost touch. So when people heard Maher framing it this way, the bigger takeaway was not just the joke itself. It was the discomfort underneath it. The idea that if a party keeps sounding detached from the country it wants to lead, voters are going to notice, and they are going to react. That is the part online commentators keep coming back to, because once that trust starts slipping, it becomes a lot harder to win it back.
Less than 1 in 4 Democrats under 30 say they're proud to be an American. 54% say they're embarrassed by it. Embarrassed? Like America's your mom picking you up at school? You're embarrassed to be an American? Well, guess what? The feeling's mutual, because you have no perspective.
And that is where Maher sees the real problem. In his view, the generation that benefits most from American freedom is also the one that seems most embarrassed by it. A Harvard youth poll appeared to support that point, with 54% of young Democrats saying they were embarrassed to be American. To Maher, that does not describe people living under oppression. It describes young people surrounded by comfort, convenience, and opportunity that earlier generations could only dream about. They post their complaints on phones America built. They order coffee through apps America built. They debate identity and politics on platforms America built. In his framing, this is not some deeper political awakening. It looks more like privilege getting frustrated with itself.
So I'm not down with this attitude of, well, we're having a party, but if Trump's going, I'm not. That's so high school it should be in the Epstein file. Go to the party. It's a big celebration. You probably won't run into him.
This is the kind of behavior Maher cannot stop shaking his head at. Grown adults with careers and college degrees, in his view, refusing to celebrate their own country's birthday just because they do not like one person at the cookout. He framed that as exactly the kind of high school energy he says has infected modern liberal politics. For Maher, the concern is that everything turns into a debate over who is in the room, while nobody wants to talk about what the room actually represents. His point is that real adults show up, and real adults can recognize the country is bigger than whoever happens to be in the spotlight that month. That, he argues, is what the newer liberal class seems to have forgotten.
If, for your exile, you do wind up in some comparatively luxurious place like Canada or Japan or the UK, not that they want you. At best, you'll be trading a bunch of stuff you hate about this country for a bunch of stuff you'll soon hate about your new home. It took me only 4 days in Amsterdam to learn that while I admire Amsterdam, I don't want to live there. The buildings are cramped and shaped like needles. The food is awful. The TV's in a different language. It's wet and cold. The people are polite but cold.
This is the point where the fantasy starts to fall apart. In Maher's view, a lot of modern liberals talk about Europe the same way a teenager talks about running away from home. Dramatic in theory, but a lot less realistic once you look closer. Many of them, he argues, have never actually lived there. They have not dealt with the taxes. They have not tried to raise a family in a cramped apartment with weak heating during winter. And they have only ever seen the postcard version. The reality, from Maher's perspective, is a lot harsher, both in climate and in everyday life. And the freedom they criticize starts to look very different once they are the ones standing there. So in his view, people who keep fantasizing about leaving America really do not understand how good they have it here.
So talk to your children and remind them you don't really want to live like your heroes in Hamas. All the shit you do all day, it was all made in America. Your smartphone, your Grubhub, your freedom to bitch about America, that's all American stuff.
And that is the part critics say many on the modern left seem unwilling to fully admit. Every freedom they enjoy, every protest sign they hold up, every joke they post, every podcast they record, all of that exists because of the country they are so quick to criticize. In Maher's view, the places some people romanticize online would not allow that same kind of content for long, and that contrast is hard to ignore. There are no women's rights marches in Afghanistan, and no progressive comedy shows in North Korea. The freedoms they often take for granted are, in his framing, uniquely American freedoms. And that is why the backlash around his comments is hitting such a nerve online.
To supporters, Maher is simply saying what a lot of people feel but do not say out loud.
To critics, though, his argument sounds like a broad swipe at a generation that is frustrated, anxious, and far more politically active than he gives it credit for. That split is exactly what is keeping the conversation alive. What makes the debate even sharper is that Maher is not really talking about one poll or one moment. He is talking about a bigger mindset, the idea that some people have started treating American freedom like background noise instead of something worth defending. And whether people agree with him or not, that framing is clearly landing with viewers who feel the country is being taken for granted. At the same time, the pushback is just as loud, because plenty of online commentators say his take overlooks why younger Americans are so disillusioned in the first place. So the conversation has turned into more than a TV clip. It has become a larger argument over gratitude, privilege, and what it actually means to criticize the country you live in.
If the thought leaders in the Democratic Party keep encouraging and not rebuking the idea that America is cringe and the people who run Gaza are great, the Democrats are doomed.
And that is not being framed as a joke anymore. In Maher's view, the direction some on the modern left are taking does not point to a comeback, it points to political fading, because the country does not seem to be moving toward that message. Instead, the message appears to keep drifting further away from the country, and with every election cycle, that gap seems to get wider. In his view, the party does not have a marketing problem. It has a values problem.
You're still building your politics around slicing and dicing people into these fixed categories. Democrats need to get the memo that you can't win elections anymore by automatically assuming you're going to get every voter who's not these guys. The more you obsess over identity, the more you ignore the bread and butter issues that win and lose elections. The real issue is class, not race, and the real gap is the diploma divide, and the real future of the party and maybe democracy depends on Democrats figuring that.
This may be one of the sharpest things Maher has said about his own side. In his view, the modern Democratic Party has increasingly been described as looking at people less as individuals and more as categories, boxes to check, tribes to count, and demographics to chase.
Critics argue that this kind of approach can end up alienating the very voters it is trying to win over. And Maher seems to believe that could be a big reason the party keeps losing ground.
Real people, after all, do not think like a spreadsheet. They think about their young people, their bills, their safety, and their future. And when a party starts treating them like an identity label instead of an actual person, that is the kind of message many of them simply walk away from.
And now one idea that's getting a lot of attention is the Dems need to find their Joe Rogan, a liberal Joe Rogan, because that's why Kamala lost. Republicans have a podcast. Okay, maybe. Or you could consider this. Instead of conjuring up a new Joe Rogan, ask yourself why you lost the old one. Because he used to be on your side. He smokes pot on the air. I don't think he's that much of a far-right ideologue. I don't think his mind is completely inflexible. His neck, yes. But not his mind. And he's expressed unease with some things Trump is doing, as has a certain disgruntled former employee named Elon Musk, who, like Joe, is another guy who 5 years ago was thought of as a liberal, but got driven into the other camp by bad attitudes and bad ideas, a reversal I completely understand, although I would never emulate. I also see the woke mind virus. I just don't jump from frying pans into fires.
This, Maher suggests, is the kind of loss that should have forced a real reset. At one point, one of the biggest podcast voices in America was on their side. One of the richest men in the world was also in their corner. And millions of everyday working men across the middle of the country were there too. In Maher's view, Democrats did not lose those voters just because of policy disagreements. He argues they lost them because of attitude. Instead of listening, they came off like they were lecturing. Instead of welcoming people in, they often sounded like they were shaming them.
And in that framing, they sent a generation of men the message that their interests, their hobbies, their humor, and even their way of life were something to be criticized.
So those men walked away, and Maher's point is that the party still does not seem eager to ask why.
You have to ask, why do millions of people every year risk their lives to come here? Because they want what we got. The founders were flawed, but they did build a place the whole world wants to break into. No one is paying a coyote to smuggle them into India or Russia. Immigrants don't see us as the problem. They see us as the solution, and there's a reason they themselves to.
People are not taking huge risks to get into Russia. They are not crossing oceans to reach Iran. They are not scaling fences to make it into China. They are coming here by the millions. As of fiscal year 2024, more than 34.7 million people had pending applications to legally enter the United States. For Maher, that contradiction is hard to brush off.
The same country that some American liberals often describe as damaged is the same one so many people around the world still want to reach.
Either the whole world has the wrong idea about America, or his own party does. He clearly believes he knows which one it is, and in his view, until Democrats realize that the people they keep offending are the same people they once claimed to speak for, they are going to keep losing election after election. So I want to hear from you. Is the modern left really capable of genuine patriotism anymore? And how long can any political party last when a large share of its own voters seems uncomfortable with the country they want to lead? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like this if Maher said what needed to be said. Subscribe, share, comment, and see you on the next one.